Okay, I hope this is all actually getting recorded because I couldn't do it again. The last piece I'm going to do here is to talk a little bit about the King and Cronin article and ask you to, I guess I could put this in writing, but I don't have access right now to your discussion thread. I think Mark, well, maybe this is why you have to watch the video and then you'll know what the question is. Okay, so their research is about membership categorization, and specifically their question about how normative presumptions about aging and sexuality are reproduced. I think that's a very interesting question. So I don't know anything about membership categorization. I knew most of the other things. They ring true. They ring familiar to me. So particularly in their findings, they say two categories that's constructed by one of their subjects, I forget his pseudonym, were sexuality, he identified as gay, and gender, he identified as male. But he qualified his gayness in that he was acting out gayness, but he didn't, in fact, identify himself as gay, which led to another category, which the authors talk about as passing, which is hugely interesting to me. As a mixed Native person, it crosses over to issues of race and passing there, and what does that mean? And we only have passing because we only have oppressive categories that try to make us remain fluid and in one category, because otherwise, in fact, we're all always passing for something. So he defines his gayness as having sex with men. And I like what they do in the article because they talk about, in the end, that, these categories. So if someone had just used, check these boxes, are you gay? Yes, and that meant, who knew what it meant? It meant something to the research. They don't know what it meant to the participants. Were unquestioned. So what they're really revealing then is the instability and performance of this particular man's gayness. And it meant a certain specific thing. If you dig deeper at the social historical context and the material conditions of being gay in this man's lifetime, and that it was a criminal act. And we don't know anything about him, but maybe he had been threatened or he felt threatened physically for some reasons. Those would be huge motivators for passing. So here we have a much bigger, richer, complex picture than just a check in the box of, yes, gay. And we see what they're talking about, and this was also a fairly new term for me, culture in action. But I do have to say, I love the idea of the mundane, how you can catch culture enacted in many ways, in the way people line up for the bus without being told, with using certain personal cues. It says so much about people culturally. So the mundane, repeated, routine, subconscious ways that enact and speak volumes to how our cultural identities are enacted and how our gendered identities are enacted are what some of this is about revealing. So I thought it might be an interesting research question or discussion question, for all of you to take a category in whatever area you're in, a category that is prominent in your research. I don't know if I can come up with some, but if maybe if you're in mathematics education, there's category of grouping. And what are the notions that are embedded there? If you're doing any kind of social science research, which many of you are in curriculum instruction, you could ask, what are the common categories that you use in your research that are unqueried at this point, that are unexamined? And just take one and give it this treatment. Say it's a common sense category, but what if I had a complex, fluid notion behind this category, and I don't know what's there, but I know that there are other things there that are unseen? What might I find? So I invite you, for your discussion questions, to try that and to see if you find anything in some of the categories that gloss. And especially, I want you to think about what's constructed as natural or normal. Those are big ones. All right. For the Ahmed piece, I think this is an easy one because this is something that has long bothers me, always bothers me. And what she's getting at is how diversity itself is constructed. And what does that mean? And how anger is funneled into certain channels and it means some things, so not other things. So that's another option for those of you who read Ahmed, is to talk about how discourse in the academy functions to position, to create a category of diversity. Diversity, I hate the way diversity is used. I don't like the way it has become a verb. Oh, there's no, let's diversify this. What does that really mean? There's no diversity here. I don't know what that means. And sometimes I think it's a euphemism, but it must have a function in the discourse of university culture. And I'm asking you to queer that. All right. Do I have such a good question for the other ones? Cynthia Dillard and darkening. I don't really have a question for that yet. I'll make one more video after I look. Oh, I know. We haven't talked about Saint Pierre. So I think it's probably useful for some of you, and you're plugging in at all different places. You might be third-year research students. You might have an undergraduate come in first year, but you have an undergraduate degree in sexuality, gender, and women's studies. But I think those concepts, language, discourse, rationality, power, resistance, knowledge, truth, and subject, are all important ideas, seminal ideas to look at in terms of post-structuralism and how they get employed in social justice efforts towards education. So I'd ask you to do that, and if you want to do it in contrast to a humanistic or a positivistic understanding of those ideas, I'd ask you to pick 2 or 3 of them in your post and talk about, what is your understanding? How have they been reinscribed, to use St. Pierre's voice, into post-structuralism? Okay, be right back.